Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CoinDrop podcast. This is episode number 101. Brief announcement that's a bit late. We took last week off. We did announce that in the Discord, so if you're not in the Discord, please consider joining us over there for up-to-date information. We wanted to take the week off, enjoy Memorial Day, the long weekend. Figured most people would probably be doing the same, so we went ahead and took that off. In addition to that, next week, which would normally be our live streamed episode, will not be a live streamed episode. I will be out of town with the wife. We're going on a family outing to Leavenworth to do some camping and fun stuff like that. So there will not be a live episode next week. We're going to pre-record that, Mike and I, before we leave for that trip. So that will be happening. Also, please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Patreon at patreon.com/CoinDrop.com. CoinDrop Pod. I'll get there. Yeah, I got there eventually. Consider leaving us a review on wherever you listen. Really, guys, any support that you give us helps. We are, again, trying to get to PAX. Mike and I have officially applied for PAX access this season. Hoping to go there as media again would be really great. Let's see. Live episode instead of being next weekend will be the 13th. We'll do our live episode that weekend. So we will still do a live episode this coming weekend, but we will not be doing scheduled live community events anymore. With just the Mike and I kind of team, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. When it was Tim here too, it was a lot of fun. We could have, three perspectives, and it was a little bit more chaotic, I guess, in that sense. In this case, with just Mike and I, it feels like it'd just be playing duos games, and that gets a little dry. So we will still stream occasionally. I think Mike has been talking about streaming as well, so there will still be streams out there, but there will not be anything that's scheduled and structured for the foreseeable future. That might change, but as of now, that's where we're at. With that, we have another guest with us on this episode. Last episode, we had Beesky, a good friend of mine, flew down for my birthday. This week, we have my wife, who is a financial analyst. So she's going to be talking about some good stuff on our main topic about analyzing the industry and kind of the trends that we're seeing from them as far as like the data side of things, which will be really fun. Looking forward to it. So, Fela, how's your week been? Tell the listeners what you've been up to.
This week was super crazy busy. It was our daughter's last week of school, and prepping to have her at home with me all week and doing summer school with her. And then we also did a ton of yard work, so super busy.
Yes, it was. Mike, what have you been up to this week?
Hanging out with people. Yesterday I came back and helped you build chicken door latch thing for the coop.
Yep.
Just, mostly kind of that. Stressed a little bit, but we're getting places. It's all good.
Yeah. Making progress. Got you a TV stand for the TV in your room now, finally? So you've got a TV
dude,
in there?
I'm gonna be honest. The reason I woke up at 1 o'clock is because I was totally playing poker on Red Dead Redemption until like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh fuck, I gotta go to bed. And I completely spaced on the fact that we were supposed to do this 4 hours ago.
Yeah, a little bit earlier, but that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. We're here. We played some Xfil. It was a free weekend this weekend. That was fun. Played that with Beesky. He actually bought the game immediately. So he's like, yeah, this game's great. That was a lot of fun. Those of you who have not checked that game out yet, seriously, their next free weekend, I think they do one a month. I highly recommend checking it out. It honestly is just a really fun milsim shooter. If you're into milsim, it's really good. With that said, last episode, I mentioned that Legacy, Steel, and Sorcery, the fantasy extraction RPG game thing, was doing a free weekend, and that I was going to check it out. Well, I did get a little bit of time with it. I think overall I played about an hour and a half, and we're going to kind of talk about it. I shared some footage. What you're seeing right now should be on screen from an edit that I did of the footage. I will also be posting that entire footage unedited to YouTube probably a day or two after this episode goes live. So if you want to see the full uncut footage, that will be there for you guys as well. What you're seeing on screen right now should be, some gameplay, and Mike has some thoughts. I have some thoughts, and unfortunately, Fela, not being a huge gamer, is going to be kind of chiming in here and there where she wants to. But her big topic's going to come later, and we're going to let her talk about that in a big way. It's going to be fun. Mike, what were your initial thoughts from the footage you saw? I want to hear your bit.
The first thing that I immediately noticed was the excuse me, the Breath of the Wild stamina system that they just straight up just copied and pasted.
Yeah.
The little green circle, and then I mean, why?
Yeah, I'm not.
Everyone that played Breath of the Wild hated the stamina system. Even people that liked the game hated the stamina system. That's the immediate thing that stood out for me. The other thing was it seemed very World of Warcraft.
It is made by veterans of World of Warcraft, so
yeah, it seemed very World of Warcraft, just kind of smashed together with an extraction shooter, and it really doesn't look like it works that well. Like you said, that it's still early access. There's still a bunch of balancing and stuff they need to do, but right now it seems like someone's putting together a jigsaw puzzle and just slamming the pieces together that don't fit.
They're definitely barbarianing it together a little bit, I think.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed, there's no self-revive mechanic. Did you have?
No. Yeah, I don't know why it gave me the option to give up when I was playing solos. But yeah, there was no. There might be an item, but why would it prompt me to give up if I don't have that item?
The item, that's what I was like. That's what I was confused about. And then also the status effects were just there was nothing on screen besides the animation of the effect itself. And so in the footage, you drank a health potion. So I thought that the green status effect that was happening because you were being poisoned was a healing effect because your stat was being healed over time.
Yeah.
Which then brings to the part where you brought up, I would think that a health potion being drank while being poisoned and taking poison damage over time would counteract the damage effect of the poison because the health would stack on top of it.
Yeah, because otherwise, what's the point, right? Why even do anything? You're gonna die.
Yeah, because you were in the middle of looting. I think it was an NPC, and then you just died.
Yep. Yeah, and you were like, "What the fuck downed you there?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, that was poison." Yeah, I couldn't figure it out at first either. Yeah, there is some jank here. There is a lot to be desired. I will say that it was fun to play. The living the archetype of that warrior was a lot of fun. You saw me get third party twice later on in the footage. I don't think it'll be on screen yet, but I killed a goblin or something at a bridge, then crossed the bridge, and there was a ranger over there that was attacking me, another player. So I engaged them, and as I came across the bridge, there was another goblin or something hanging out of the bridge, so I killed them and then had to fight that person, and I was able to actually really well manage that fight, kind of got them in close, beat them, and then I got third partied again by a freaking priest and got downed. But it definitely felt like I was a damage soaking axe wielding monster on the battlefield. The gameplay in that aspect feels really good. I like the abilities. I like a lot of it's probably not balanced at all because it's a little ridiculous that I have an ability that I can basically scorpion grab people and be like, get over here, because I had that grappling hook I used to pull the archer towards me, and if you get close to a warrior, you're kind of screwed, right? So it's got a lot of potential. And I did enjoy what I played, but there's also a lot of weird jank with the game, kind of like what you mentioned there. There's also, later on in the footage, I start a game, and it seems like I jumped in the middle of a match. I went into a little dungeon area, and everything was already open and looted. There was no enemies, nothing. I was really confused. Yeah, I was like, did I join a match in progress? What's happening here? And
it ended with defeat.
Yes.
Which was also weird.
Well, I cut it. I ended up dying later on somewhere. I don't remember where I died in that thing, but yeah, I ended with defeat because I think I got swarmed by a bunch of goblins or something like that. I don't remember exactly what happened, but like I said, all that unedited footage will get posted as well. It's about an hour of gameplay and messing with characters and stats and stuff like that. So if you're interested in it, it'll be there. I am happy to see that it is an extraction that has a solos mode. We've seen that kind of disappear in some games. It seems to be hit or miss whether or not a game is going to have a solos for an extraction game, but I'm glad to see that it does have it. It also has team mode, which is cool, so you can play with the team. It feels good, I guess, good enough to enjoy, but And I really like the art style, but the stamina thing does kind of suck. I will agree with you there. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's a game I'm going to buy, though, because honestly, the whole time I was playing it, I was like, man, this would be really good as a single player or multiplayer RPG narrative game. Like, the setting is really cool. All of it made me just go, I really wish this was an actual RPG, which is obviously not what they want. The devs actually straight up came and said that this is their love letter to PvP WoW. That was their whole goal for it. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be for everybody. I think it's going to be another one of those niche titles that it's going to grab its audience of WoW players mostly, which makes me really concerned about the toxicity of the community. Honestly, at some point. But
the WoW players might like try it and be like, "This why is this a fucking thing?"
Yeah,
and then just not play it.
Yeah,
because most hardcore WoW players, the extraction shooters aren't their thing.
That's fair. That's a good point. They generally don't like them
in general.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's something I might pick up on a sale, play over a weekend with some friends, or just pick up and drop every now and then. It just we've talked about this before. Every game competing for all of your time makes it impossible to want to get any games. And there's a game that I'm looking forward to, we're going to talk about in the Patreon side, that seems to be just doing that exactly. And it's really, I'm sad to say, turned me off from the game. So we'll talk about that over on Patreon, though. Moving on, we've got a quick indie highlight. This is a game called No Life Zombie Survivor. This is an independent developer from a guy, I really can't pronounce his name, so if you listen to this footage, I apologize for butchering it. It's Vara GTP. I think it's supposed to be Vara GTP, but I have no idea. Yep, that's sure. Independent dev. It's a bullet hell roguelike zombie shooter. Think in the vein of like Vampire, I think it's Vampire Survivors. Is that the other like super popular one? I'm not usually into these, but the pixel art style mixed with kind of what they're doing here looks like, I don't want to discredit it and say a cell phone game, but it looks like something you could just, okay, I've got like 2 minutes to hang out and chill. I'm going to play this. You know, it looks like one of those games you just jump in, play for a few minutes and jump out, which is really cool in a busy world. Would be really great on the Steam Deck, right? Like if you're going on a trip to the grocery store with your wife who's staring blankly into her monitor and you're riding along.
Watch
you just, just pull up the old Steam Deck.
More like glaring, like you could just be talking to me.
Yeah, you were definitely giving me some cold eyes. That's all right. It's funny. But yeah, it'd be a great game for that to just pick up and play for a few minutes and put down. So it doesn't have a release date yet. It is a solo dev, so who knows when it'll actually drop. There is going to be a dog companion that I don't know what the metrics, I guess, that you need to meet to unlock him. You apparently find him, or he's a random spawn in the world. I'm not too sure. They didn't make that very clear. There's multiple different characters, supposedly, even though they only show one in what they have on Steam right now. Multiple different characters with different abilities and stuff like that. Typical roguelike stuff, right? You can upgrade your character, and they did use AI, which I'm really happy to see that Steam has that disclosure now. They did use AI, but only, according to the dev, only for audio design. So they just used it to help with some probably sound effects or music or something along those lines, which doesn't seem too terribly uncommon.
And it wasn't even entirely like AI. It was just, he even mentions it's in help of like his idea.
Yeah.
Shaking the table, but shaking my camera.
That's fine.
Curious. AI, where's like the line there where AI is doing the creativity versus AI is helping with the coding?
Yeah, that's, that is one of the big concerns with AI in gaming, right? A lot of people don't like it. My personal take is I'm fine with it if you're like a small indie, if you're one guy building a game and maybe you're really great at making maps, but you're not the best at coding databases, right? Like you lean on the tools you have. So yeah, I mean,
I personally use AI in my job a lot, and it's a troubleshooting. So instead of bugging my coworkers 10,000 times a day, hey, can you look over this? Like, I use it to troubleshoot often, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is mostly what your devs use them for in big studios. It's just troubleshooting.
They might. I mean, it's hard to say, right, without being on boots on the ground in those studios. But there is the concern that a lot of studios have been proven to be using it for art, right? Ubisoft, the biggest call out recently was Ubisoft being accused of plagiarism with Assassin's Creed Shadows and all of the AI generated art there and straight up stolen pictures. And I mean, Bungie recently is facing that with their plagiarism issue. I don't think they used AI. I think that was actual deliberate plagiarism. But yeah, AI has its place in game design, I think. And saying no at all 100% of the time is a little, I don't know. It shuts it down when a tool is capable of what AI is capable of. It's foolish to basically say I'm not going to put that in my belt. Like I'm just never going to use it.
It's the same way with employers over generations of like the new kid versus the senior. It's stupid to be like uptight and not want to adapt to the environment around you.
Yeah, life is change, and we all need to adapt and learn. And I still think the invention of AI was probably the worst thing humanity's done in a long time. We still don't fully understand consciousness, and we're trying to build something that doesn't have it, but make it intelligent. And that's a terrifying proposition. There's a lot of stories out there about whether they're true or not, right? That's the thing. Well, yeah. I mean, there's the most recent one where the Google engineer was fired and discredited because he went to his supervisors and said that the AI that he was working on was conscious. And they've done a lot to discredit him. And it's really kind of scary because it's like, okay, well, what if he was telling the truth? What if this is becoming conscious? And there's a lot of stories like that. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. AI is a powerful tool and it's also terrifying.
I will say my take on it is that as long as you're using it to help your workflow and not just take over your workflow. Yeah. Like this guy he said he was using it to help create and or modify audio, which makes sense because if you have, a specific mechanic that you need a specific audio type for and you don't have the little clip and you need to make one, oh, well, now I don't know how to do that. So let me use, OpenAI real quick. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. Or like Fela was saying, using it to double check her work so she's not bugging her coworkers all day, every day, right? Just checking it for troubleshooting, making sure that the code makes sense or whatever she's working on. So, but speaking of Fela and her work, Hun, why don't we go ahead and jump into what you've kind of done research. You spent the better part of the morning, I think, digging into something, and you've got something like 47,000 tabs open on your screen. So I'm curious to hear what you've got for us, because we've talked about it a bunch of times, Mike and I, and even Tim before, that like there is this push in the industry to constantly be making more and more money each year. It's not enough to continue to make a profit, but there's this, or seemingly this push that every year has to outdo the previous year. And it's just unsustainable, right? Like that's not how business works. And from what you've told me, that's not just a video game outlook. That's businesses in all markets have this kind of weird desire to constantly be making more each year. Well, not a weird desire, but like weird requirement, I guess.
It is a weird requirement. It's a requirement, especially for publicly traded companies. Almost, I wouldn't say exclusively for publicly traded, but most common for publicly traded. We see this a lot with new companies that have a really good boost, where they're doing very, very well, and then they start not doing well. And then you start seeing these reports where people keep saying, this company is starting to do poorly, they like XYZ, but the company isn't doing poorly. That's not an accurate statement. What isn't happening is they aren't having the same growth in profit, a massive growth in the profit every single year. And it seems to be this big financial focus on, well, the company should be making this profit more and more every single year. They should have a 10% growth year over year in profit, regardless of if they've, paid down debt. So your debt to income ratio is a lot less.
Sure.
They don't take that into account. They just talk about what the profit year over year is. take for example, I pulled up Microsoft and Sony, comparing those two because they are big conglomerates. They have video game stuff and non-video game stuff. In Let's see, I'm looking at balance sheets for the two companies, and the big difference here is Sony is a Japanese company, whereas Microsoft is an American company. And they have, sorry, I was looking at the.
Yeah, you got a billion tabs. It's okay. Take your time.
I literally have so many tabs open. Okay. So in yen. And yen is a hard one for me. So cash and cash equivalent. So I'm looking at Sony here. And in March 31st, 2024, this is the end of their fiscal year. So a fiscal year is not a calendar year.
Right.
And it's decided on whatever company, what they want their fiscal year to be. This would be February 2020. Sorry, not March, April 2023, all the way to March 31st, 2024.
Gotcha.
That's how that fiscal year would work. And then from April 1st, 2024, all the way to March 31st, 2025.
Okay.
That's the two fiscal years that we're looking at here. Sony had 1 million more profit, cash equivalent in 2025 versus 2024. So they did much better.
Okay, so they did see that profit growth, right? They did see that year-over-year profit increase that apparently seems to be the thing every business is after.
Yes, and it was entirely content assets, which that's going to be defined by the company itself and other financial assets. So what that isn't is sales.
Okay, so
that is other investments that they would have done is the biggest difference there. That could be debt sales. So the difference between Japan. Sorry, everything says Tokyo on here, and I'm trying not to say Tokyo. I'm trying to say Japan.
Sure.
The difference between Japan and the US is when they are listing out their financial statements, they are listing cash equivalent instead of income and debt separately, which is really interesting because it's not how the US reports. US reports mainly on what their income is, and they try to hide the debt in different places. I don't love it because we focus so much on having debt that it doesn't tell you the full story. Whereas Japanese companies seem to list their liabilities very clearly on their income statements, balance sheets. Now, if I'm looking at Microsoft had their fiscal year is June 30th, 2024, so that would be
August, right?
No, July.
Yeah.
July 2023 until June 30th, 2024. So what I'm not looking at is 2 full years because this is their balance sheet as of March 31st, 2025, not June.
Right, because that would have just come out then. Or that would come out at the end of June, wouldn't it?
That would have come out. Actually, would come out probably at the end of July. Usually, companies don't post for a full 30 days after the close of their books because they are making final entries, payroll, all of that stuff.
Gotcha.
So it's usually 30 days post. Theirs is they ended June 2024 with 18 million in cash equivalent, and so far for 2025 fiscal year they're at 28,000 million, which would be 28 billion. I think I hate how they have this listed.
28,000 billion would be, or million would be billion. Yes. Making me math over here, huh?
Ooh,
I'm gonna say billion like that from now on. 28,000 million.
That's how they have it listed. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Weird.
Right.
28 B.
But this is Microsoft as a whole, right? Like this isn't Xbox, this is Microsoft. Yeah.
Xbox,
Yeah.
this is whatever else they own under. This is Microsoft as a whole. So
Sure.
this is every single
Bit.
part of Microsoft as a company.
Gotcha.
Their software sales, everything. So the biggest thing that I see is they have their listed debts. They had short-term debt in 2024 that they have paid off, which is huge for a company
Yeah.
to pay off all of their debt.
Would that be I wonder if that would have been the acquisition of Bethesda, or maybe the Activision of Blizzard, because they did acquire both of those in the last 5 years. I mean, Bethesda was very recent, so it's entirely possible that they paid off that. Granted, this is Microsoft as a whole, right? So it could be anything that Microsoft has acquired, but just timing wise, it makes me wonder if they've paid off Bethesda. That's cool. Good for them.
Right. So that what that could be is why their income, their cash was so low, is because they paid that out, which is a really smart move for a company.
Yeah. That's a smart move for anybody, right? Pay down your debt. Financial tips from CoinDrop.
They have a total of $240 billion in debt.
Jesus. I thought we had a lot of debt.
That's a total liability. So liabilities can change. They can be different. But like if they had to pay everything in 1 month, their cash would not cover that.
Yeah.
And business liability is like, if I'm remembering correctly, from my stepdad, who was a business owner, is everything from like new properties that are still kind of just stagnant, nothing's happening with them, to actual like office supply. Like there's so much gap between liability that it's hard to say what it could be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's insane. It could be product on the shelves at a store that is a debt because it's stock on the shelf that hasn't sold yet.
Yeah, sure, makes sense.
So these two companies, they're massive, obviously. It was interesting because both companies are very solidly doing well. Neither one of these companies, I would say, are failing in any way. But it could be that Microsoft as itself, the operating system, the software, is holding up Xbox and the other video game side of things.
I think it's not necessarily been confirmed, but I know there was a report at some point from the current CEO of Microsoft that basically had to choose whether or not to axe Xbox completely. I can't remember the exact details, but there was basically an ultimatum. Yeah, there was an ultimatum presented to the CEO. So I know Xbox side of things isn't doing well. Maybe they are now, or maybe they will be. But it's interesting because I've said multiple times, and I'd like to hear your.
So I can look at that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this idea. Right, I think I've said this about AT&T in the past when they owned DirecTV in America. Companies get tax breaks if they have a portion of their business that's failing. And so I've constantly wondered if Microsoft continues to keep Xbox failing so that they can continue to get that tax cut. And with your knowledge, I would imagine you'd be able to have some.
It's not a tax cut.
Okay.
That's not how that works.
Well, this is why I'm talking to you.
So it's not a tax cut. What it's cushioning because what you owe in taxes is, a business owes several different taxes. They owe taxes on their employee salaries, they owe taxes on their income, they owe taxes on lots of different. So if we're solely talking on taxes on income, what can happen is a company might buy a company that isn't doing as well, but they think that they can bring into profit, because that's really important, because otherwise you're just dragging it down into like the whole company down.
Okay.
It's a fine line of a game, and it really is a game that they are playing with the stock market, really.
Yeah.
Is you want to cushion it so that you're not paying so much in taxes. So a company that isn't doing as well will make it look like an overall company isn't doing as well, because they're in the red, whereas the rest is in the black. So red is negative, black is positive.
Right.
So they can do that to make it look like they have more debt to income, and therefore they don't they pay that debt, and there's less income.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So the
Yeah.
income is much smaller that they would be paying on. However, if a company were to do that and it not go well, and they have multiple years of smaller income, what you see is their stock price decline.
Mm.
And if the stock price declines, then you have less investors investing in your company. Your overall value of your company goes down. So it is a fine line, and it's a game that they play on how to balance those two out
Gotcha.
to make as much profit as possible. So do they necessarily intentionally make a part of their company do poorly? Likely not, because then their stock would go down, and they don't want that either.
Got it. That makes sense.
However, video games are such a new, honestly, tech industry is such a new thing that it is just now being established where certain things are versus others. So like Microsoft's software when it comes to companies as a whole is solid. Like there's no other operating system that most companies trust more.
Yeah.
Apple has no game in the healthcare industry because they just don't integrate as well with the healthcare software and HIPAA compliance that healthcare companies need. So Microsoft is solid in that aspect.
Sure.
However, when we look at their video game portfolio, they're not doing as well because they're treating it like every other aspect of their company. They don't have people in charge of the company that love video games. It's an art. It's not. It's like any other media. It's books. It's TV shows. It's movies. And books and movies and TV shows, none of those things are publicly traded.
That's a good
Like
point.
big editor companies are, but you have private investors for movies. You have private investors for books. You do not have publicly traded companies, not as far as I know anyway.
Yeah.
Like you do for like an editor or publisher, but you do not for like Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
Fourth Wing isn't going to go public, like publicly stock traded. Like absolutely not. But like, you do have that for video game publishers, even though they're only publishing a couple games at a year. It would be like a publishing company going public when they only publish 2 to 3 books a year. That makes no sense. Or movies. Like it really doesn't make sense for the type of media that you have to be publicly traded. It leads to more people being told what to do and less people having the authority in a business or in an art sense to be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah, like it steals creative freedom, right? You also like you bloat the cost of the game because like, now you've got a board of directors you're paying salaries to, right? Who are getting the majority of the money. And we see what's happening right now in the industry where they're cutting the people who are actually making the game because it's quote unquote costing too much. Well, what's costing too much is that your board of directors all make $100,000 a year. At a minimum. I'm sure they make more than that, but yeah.
None of them know what the fuck a video game is.
Right. And so that's really interesting that you say that Microsoft is looking at it as a business rather than an art, and I think a lot of American companies do that, which is really unfortunate.
I think that is the case for especially Sony and Microsoft. It's just another part of their portfolio, and who they put in charge is not somebody who loves video games. I think the years that we saw the best video games were 2014 and before. I think 2014 was the last year that we had games that came out that were artistic, that had people that were just really excited to be working on the games and working with these companies. And it has been stagnated because it has lost the freedoms that it had before by being purchased by these big companies.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning there are still a bunch of indies that still do that, but like, and in terms of like people that love working on the games, obviously the devs do, but like it's a leadership issue, right? It's the people at the top, it's the boardrooms that are not the ones that want to be there to make a game. They're there because they want to make money. And there are a few companies we've seen that are there for that, right? Like CD Projekt Red loves making games all the way from top to bottom. Larian loves making games from top to bottom. Like there are a few of them out there, but they are far and few between these days. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's to the point with CD Projekt Red, especially where they'll take the brunt of the investors being like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
and like they'll stand in the way of the gamer to make sure that they get the product that they want to put out.
Yeah,
that they want to make, not what the fucking investor wants.
But that used to be the rule, and now it's the exception.
Yeah, and this, you mentioned 2014, and now I'm like harkening back to when Mark Cerny was up on stage talking about the PS4. How it had 12 gigabytes of VRAM shared with the system, and like all these new, like genuine hurdles and leaps,
General herps.
Yeah, herpes. Genuine leaps and hurdles over the PS3 to what even today, like the leap from the base PS4 to the base PS5 is not that big. Like it's there's
and I think Sony was pushed to we need to release a new console without I think had they waited probably until 2026 2027 they could have released something like that with the new things coming out of Nvidia and Intel and AMD. Had they waited a couple more years, they probably would have had that, but they weren't listening to the other parts that they needed to listen to. They were listening to their investors who were saying, well, it's time because we aren't making enough money. And I get it. Money, you need to in these instances, especially with consoles, you need your investors because they're the ones that are paying for the upfront cost to develop these things.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a symbiotic relationship, and it's not.
I think the other part of it is that it's also kind of why I think the PlayStation 6 and the next Xbox, if there is another Xbox, will be another decent hurdle because they've been going to AMD for the last 2 generations and all of their refreshes. And AMD in the last 4 years alone has made such technical advancements in their CPUs and GPUs. And I think that they're going to take what they learned and apply that to their system on a chip, when they actually go and make the next consoles. And I think that will be enough to hopefully make enough of a gap, not quite PS3 to PS4, but definitely more than PS4 to PS5. And the other side of that is because Sony and Microsoft are both going to AMD to make these specific system on chips. The Series X and the PS5, same fucking platform, just different operating systems. They're also now dealing with the investors of AMD. They're not just dealing with their own investors. They're now also they're mingling with other people from different parts of the industry that have to literally say yes. Because if one person says no on the AMD side of things, then AMD has to back out. You know what I mean?
It would be beneficial for them if they did. They want that contract. AMD wants that contract. Nvidia wants that contract because that's huge for their sales. We saw with Nvidia earlier this year where they went from I think their stock price is $60, $50.
I can tell you what it's at. Hang on.
It's gone up, babe. It's $138.
All right.
I think that's what it closed at on Friday. It could be off by a couple of dollars, but it's up in the 130s. But it went from $30 to 130 because of contracts. They contracted and then they shot up in prices.
And they released the 5060 this week, I think, or next week is supposed to be when that GPU is coming out, and it's supposed to be the all budget GPU of this generation or something. It's fucking Nvidia though, so I believe it when I see it.
which is why their stock prices keep fluctuating. They go like this because they say that they can deliver something, and then it's several more months before
Paper
they're
lunch.
actually delivering.
Yeah.
Paper lunch. Here, it's on a sheet of paper. Look, this is a picture of it.
So you've actually
looks like this,
analyzed.
trust
You've looked at Nintendo too, right? Which Nintendo I think
Yeah.
is going to be an interesting one because they're a video game company, right? Like they started with card game and went into toys and things like that. Now they are, as far as I know, solely invested in video games, which should give us kind of a different take. Well, yeah, not solely maybe.
They're not a conglomerate
Right.
like Microsoft is that has very big names and lots of things. They
Video and
obviously have investments in other things
Sure.
that aren't as big.
Right.
But they do have investments in other things. And if they didn't, that would not make sense for a big company that's making millions of dollars a year. Well, millions of yen, because we're talking Japan again.
Right.
I actually compared them to EA. So the two here are very interesting because, again, we have a Japan company and how they list out their year over year. It's pretty consistent that March 31st is the end of the fiscal year, so that might be a Japanese standard. I can't say because I'm only looking two of the companies
Sure.
that are from Japan,
Of the millions.
of the millions. So in this case, the year end of its consolidated operating results, which I don't entirely understand what that is. It looks like what their year end profit is, but I can't say for sure because I don't know what that data definition is of consolidated operating results. It's not a common term used in United States financial reporting. They ended 2024 with 1.67 yen, and then they ended 2025 with 1.164 million yen, which is a 30% decrease year over year.
So
This is a lot.
Yeah, they lost some income.
They did.
Wow.
It's pretty substantially. The difference here is in the US reporting, they list it differently. So before I read a little bit of how the financial report from Nintendo is, I'm going to do EA.
Sure.
So you can see how drastic this is and why I like Nintendo's version better. So operating for EA, they ended they have not released 2025. So this is 2023 to 2024.
Okay.
They use the calendar year, which is funny because most companies do not.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Pretty weird.
Lazy.
I don't know. It probably is easy.
Yeah.
Much easier for a lot of accountants. So 2023 ended at 290 million and 2024 ended at 293 million.
Okay.
So about a 3 million increase. That's net income, which is pretty good. They have their investing activities, which they list as expenditures, which is negatives instead of positives, but they have sales from those. It's not going to go into that.
Okay.
But how they list? Scroll down here.
Yep. 10 million tabs. We know.
No, it's more
really
like 10
big web
million
page.
pages.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was listed here. They had listed their different business outlooks. That's exactly what I was looking for. So they had listed their business outlooks as just what the revenue was expected and what it did.
Got it.
That's it. So net revenue is expected to be approximately 7.25 billion to 7.4 billion in 2025. Net income is expected 1 to 1.1 billion. That's it. That's all they list. They don't list any information on how they're going to do that, what possibly like why, like what the differences were. They list nothing. They list just very random numbers, to be honest. Like it probably just a percentage, generic percentage. They don't list what games were sold, what, like anything in this financial reporting.
And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean that's stuff that like the shareholders see, right? Like you would want you would want as a shareholder some explanation of like how this company that you're supporting is going to achieve this, right?
Right. And they likely do. They make it private. They don't make it public, which is frustrating because I mean, as an analyst, there is nothing on either one of these reports that I'm going to be reading that is new or surprising information to public.
Sure.
So if I'm looking at Nintendo, they specifically list out the reasons why they didn't do as well in 2024 as 2025 as 2023. 24. Oh my gosh, I'm screwing this all up.
You're fine.
So, at the end of their fiscal year, they're looking at Nintendo Switch business for the final fiscal year, April 2024 through 2025. Sales of titles released during this fiscal year grew steadily, including Super Mario Party Jamboree selling 7.4 million units and The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom selling 4 million units. Sales of both hardware and software declined compared to the previous year, fiscal year, when sales were substantially driven by The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, released in May of 2023, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, released in October 2023. Even so, sales were steady for a platform that entered in its 9th year.
Yeah.
So American companies would see this as excuses.
Mm-hmm.
You're using excuses when that's a societal issue that I won't even get into.
Yes.
But it's not excuses. It's facts.
Yeah.
The facts are you released 2 big title games in 2023 and had a bigger revenue in those years. In 2024, you did not release as big of titles as the previous year. So you don't see the increase in revenue. It's factual as that. They just left it at that, which it gives you explanation. It's nothing new to the public, and it makes me appreciate why they might be increasing their prices, because they might not be releasing new games, new titles in the next couple of years, and they might have to increase the cost of their games to offset that.
I guess they did say, so talking about prices, we mentioned this before, right? Nintendo is increasing the cost of, as they put it, quote, some first party titles, which arguably probably means all first party titles, but we can't verify that. We do know, however, that the new Super Mario Kart World is coming out on the 5th. We're going to be talking about the games that are coming out on our Patreon side if you want to check that out. But we know that's coming out, and that will be $80 digital and $90 physical. So I suppose if Nintendo is going to release 1, maybe 2 games a year, I guess I can kind of see that price point based on what you're saying now, with like, if they're not releasing, because how many games a year does EA release? How many games a year does Activision release, right? So if Nintendo's only releasing a couple of games a year, literally a couple, 2, 3 at most, I would imagine, that could put them in a bad spot, I guess. So I hate it, but judging by the data that you're pulling and kind of the numbers you're talking about, I guess it makes sense making them that price point. I still won't pay for them. I hope nobody does, but they're too expensive. But that's just my take.
They're very expensive, but to counter that argument, if Nintendo is more likely to do this than a U.S. company, but if they're going to raise their employees' salaries,
That's the question, right? Is will they do that? That's honestly, that's the thing that bothers me the most about. We've talked about this with taxes and stuff, right? Like when taxes increase, it doesn't seem like anything actually changes. Where does that money go? Who does it go to? When video game sales increase, are the people on the floor working their ass off, doing 80, 90 hours a week, getting an increase? Are they seeing the profits of this? Or is it just going into the shareholders' pockets? Right? Like that's my biggest concern with it is the not knowing. A prime example would be anybody, Jake working at Bungie. Is he going to see more money in his pocket at the end of the year if Bungie decides that their games are now going to be $80? Right? Like, I don't trust a lot of companies that they're going to quote unquote trickle down that income.
So another big thing that we've seen in the last, I would probably say 8 years, maybe even 10 years, is the cost of software that these companies use to develop video games going up, and the increase in different softwares that you need in order to create games. I know personally, I don't create anything visual at my job, but what I do use is gone up in the last 5 years. We are now using 5 or 6 systems because we have such a big team. We have a big team of people that are working on similar different parts of coding at the same time. There became these issues, probably where you saw a lot of bugs in video games, and probably where you do see a lot of bugs in video games is when companies do not have an integrated system of rolling out updates, where you have, we use DevOps, which is a Microsoft product, and Visual Studio Code. So it's a way of ensuring that if I am updating a piece of code, it is updated across the system, and it goes through a peer review process that somebody is checking my code at, well, actually, usually about 6 people on my team are checking my code to make sure that it is accurate, I'm using the most up-to-date tables, and that I didn't mess anything up. I can guarantee you the companies that have the biggest issues with their code and bugs don't have an integrated system like that, where they have peer review process in place and they have a system in place where your updates are, like, let's say Russ is working on this piece of code and it has to do with the piece of code I'm working on. We both implemented it at the exact same time because we don't have this integrated system, and your code causes my code to have a bug. Because I left something out that you implemented because we weren't using an integrated system.
Gotcha.
So companies that implement this, it's one, more expensive, but two, you have less issues and less bugs. So I can also see how the cost is going up because the software that you need is more expensive and there's more of it in order to have a really good integrated system. Now, I can't say that for every company. Bugs happen, no matter what. Like, but we have a lot less bugs than we used to have because we use DevOps. Not saying DevOps is what everyone has to use. There are lots of other
use an integrated system.
Because we use an integrated system that, I'm not saving version 2, 5, 6, 8, 10 on my own personal folder file system. It's accessible to everyone to see the version history. Like, that sort of thing is what could have caused a company to have a big debt one year and need to increase their costs because they're implementing a new system. And that's the type of thing that isn't going to be released to the public because they're like, what does it matter? Like, we spent $10 million on this new software. So, like, giving the benefit of the doubt on, like, increased prices thing. At the same time, U.S. companies are historically really bad at giving raises and really awful at managing themselves and their hierarchies. Like, they end up with 15 different levels of hierarchy from top to coders.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need that much bloat in between
Yeah, and unfortunately, rather than cut the actual bloat, they end up cutting the people that are making the games because they're just like, oh, AI can do it. Like they just sweep away the people that are doing the jobs. I can't say that's every system that does that or every developer that does that, but
what is so funny about you saying that is my boss went to the Microsoft
press conference or something.
It's not a press conference, but it is a conference.
Okay.
It's like a conference for AI
Okay.
and new systems, DevOps, whatever. And she was like, how often they said AI cannot replace people. It cannot, like, if you do that, you will have garbage in and garbage out, which is
Yep.
what we say in data. Like,
Yep.
if you put garbage in, you're getting garbage out.
Yep.
How does data work? Like, they were reiterative with that.
Yeah.
Across the board. And yet you do have companies like people off saying AI can do it. And then they have massive issues because
Mhm.
I can tell you AI could not see the issues in the data that I can see with my human eyes because it's not a pattern that is consistent across everyone. And that is what AI looks like.
Yeah. AI just isn't there for that level of computing. Like you said, it's good for
And
troubleshooting.
I don't think it will ever be. Like it needs such a babysitting. It's like toddler. You're babysitting a toddler trying to code. And this toddler can do it. They are very, very great, but they're still a toddler and they still need some help with their spelling and formatting and grammar.
Yeah, just
They don't get it right every time.
Yeah. So, well, did you have anything else you wanted to add on this, Fela? For our listeners, was there any other datas you wanted to go over before we move on to our quickfire news?
I think I was going to talk a little bit about Ubisoft, but that's okay. Ubisoft is also just very interesting because they had not as much profit, and I think that's across the board for most companies. Just are seeing not as much profit, and it seems like companies outside the U.S. are doing a much better job of being informative to the people playing their games, the people wanting to purchase and investing in their company, and not investors, but the gamers.
Yeah.
And U.S. companies just do not seem to care, and that's really sad, and it sucks. Not saying indies, I mean big conglomerates. Indies,
AAAs.
Indies are wonderful because they usually do care.
They're the passion projects.
They are the passion projects, and I know how hard that can be. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you. And if you guys want more of Fela on the podcast, let us know. Just leave a comment. Say you want more. Say you want to hear more about what Ubisoft's going on, or if you want to hear about CD Projekt Red or any other company that we can find, and we'll be more than happy to have you back on the show and talk some more data. But moving on for our quick fire as we go forward, Mike, you have a couple for us, and then I will, I guess, close out the episode.
I mostly just had the one.
And it's
mostly just a rant and not necessarily news.
All right. 60 seconds. Go.
All right. So
50 seconds.
Naquan is the name of the game, I think. It's being made by the developers of Dave the Diver. And Dave the Diver is like a great indie game, since we're on the subject of indie games. They are making a extraction shooter crossed with zombies in like the city of Naquan, which is supposed to be a fictional Japanese, China, Korean, Asian city.
Well done.
Yeah, it's great. They haven't really announced anything new since they did their playtest. Like, I think it's been 2 years now, and then they just announced something, and they're just part of the current Steam sale that's coming up, Vampires and Freaks or whatever the hell it's called, and the game isn't even for sale yet. So like, they want you to vote on their fucking non-existent game
that we know nothing about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why would anybody do that?
That's the yeah.
Okay.
It's fucking stupid. You say nothing for 2 years, and you're like, hey, vote for our game.
that you know nothing
Based
about.
on the fucking playtest that we played, and then all you've said since then is that you're rewriting the fucking game because the playtest was jank? Yeah, let me just vote yes.
Awesome. Well done.
Fucking Christ.
Well, on I guess we'll keep with the not great news from the American companies. I don't know if the devs behind Dave the Diver are American, but EA has decided to cancel the Black Panther game and shut down the studio. I had no idea that they were making. I did not know they were making a Black Panther game.
Yeah, I saw that news and I was like, the game with Black Panther and Captain America?
Nope,
And
that's
then I looked
Marvel
it up and I'm like, no, it's a
1940s.
completely separate game.
Yeah, I had no idea they were making a Black Panther game. I don't remember seeing anything on it ever. But apparently we aren't getting that now because EA has once again shut another studio down. In some good news, however, a game, possibly the rarest game in all of human history, has recently been preserved.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a game that I never have heard of, which doesn't surprise me because it's one of the rarest games ever.
There's one left in the whole fucking planet.
And people didn't actually think it really existed. So, like, it's that rare. One copy of this game was found. It is a 1993 copy of Cosmology of Kyoto. I have no idea what the content of this game is. It was made in 1993, so we're talking like 8-bit at best, most likely, maybe 3DO. It's impossible to say, but it's been preserved. Somebody has officially uploaded it. I don't remember where. I'm trying to look now. It has been shared online. Say. Yeah, it doesn't say, but it is shared
Maybe
online.
Don't say if it does say.
Yeah, it does have. I mean, yeah. So there is a website. I will put the article in the links for this video if you guys want to check it out and actually download it and check out what this game is. It is far better graphically than I thought it was. Looking at this quick little GIF that somebody made of it. I have no idea what the content of this game is, but it is literally the rarest video game in the world. And thank God that somebody found it and put it on the internet so that we could preserve it. Because as we've discussed here today, video games are art and they should be preserved. So that's really cool. Moving on from there, Kingmakers, a mind F of a game, which looks like... how do I even begin to describe this? A third-person Dynasty Warriors where you travel through time in a truck or other vehicle and use heavy weaponry to fight Middle Ages.
I've seen the trailer for this game.
It looks like somebody took the idea of Evil Dead Army of Darkness and just took the horror out of it and made Ash come back with just auto shotguns and AR-15s and just wipe out soldiers. So that is actually got its system specs announcement. I'm glad to know that this game is still in works because it looked interesting. You literally travel through time using like DeLorean style technology and affect the current time by your actions from what it looks like. There's still not a lot of information out on this game, but what we do have is minimum and recommended system specs. And we've been informed that minimum of 8 gigs of memory, which seems really low. Memory RAM. Which seems really low to run a game in modern day. However, the storage is also low. It's sub 100 for this game. It's 80 gigs of space.
Unheard of. Impossible.
Right? So it does recommend a minimum GPU of a 2060 or equivalent and a recommended of a 3070 or better, obviously. But a relatively reasonable specs for what this game was showing off. If you haven't seen this one, I'm sure Mike might be able to roll some footage here as we're talking about it in the video because we record this separately. But yeah.
In the words of Anchorman, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you. What?
That's fine.
That seems way too low for a game today.
Right? It's kind of wild, considering what they're showing on screen too. I mean, this isn't like a couple of guys on screen. The image I'm looking at shows probably it looks like Daisy or Days Gone level like mobs on the screen that you're just mowing down with machine guns. So wild that they're able to get it to that kind of file size. Next up, let's see, what do we got? Project Zomboid, a game that I played years ago after reading a review that said 10 out of 10, I can drink bleach and kill myself, will play again. Literally what spawned me to get the game. I was like, I got to check this out, which is basically The Sims meets zombies. It's a really interesting game. Big fan of it. It blew up a while ago. Some streamer was playing and it got really popular. Well, someone has built a mod for it that has a new map with 5 towns and over 1,700 new buildings. They literally rebuilt the game with a mod to make the game take place in France. This comes with new items, new cars, all kinds of, like, it is a brand new game.
They literally watched Daryl Dixon. They were like, hey, this would be pretty good.
I mean, they might
do that.
They might have. I haven't watched Daryl Dixon, but there is a trailer for it. Again, a lot of these links, guys, I'll have these linked in the description. It'll be there if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify or anywhere. In the description, there is links to these articles. So if you want to check them out or these videos, feel free. To
the one listener on Apple Podcasts, thank you.
Are we even on Apple Podcast?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have one? I'm gonna have to look at this. I'm gonna have to look at the stats now. See if we have one listener.
We have one listener.
Awesome. Thank you, guy.
And it isn't me.
Give us a 5-star if you're listening, please. Tell your friends. So, and then the last bit of news I have, we're going to take a trip down nostalgia lane here. Someone has done an amazing thing. I thought I had the article up. I don't. Someone has done an amazing thing. Do you remember, Mike, when you were a wee
Probably
little
not.
lad, did you ever go to a pizza place or an arcade and they had the old X-Men arcade beat 'em up side scroller where you could play as Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Storm? Yeah, do you remember that?
I never played them, but yeah, I remember.
Okay, well, good news. You can play them now for free. Someone has actually remade that game with, I think it's 50 playable characters. They've completely rebuilt it from the ground up for free on the internet right now. You can download and play it.
Here's my question. Sega still owns the license.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation, right? I'm not too sure how that works because I think
Copyright laws?
Well, so yeah, I'm going to talk about that. I think I had the article up. I must have closed it, but it'll be in the links as well. My guess is that they're getting around those copyright laws by parody. Would be my only guess, but they still have the characters' names or homage. Like there's certain I don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know how they got away with this. I don't know if it's something that's going to disappear. So if you're interested in it...
100% going to disappear, because here's the thing. You're violating the copyright of Sega. And Sega, I mean, Sega's good guy Sega. Like, Sega don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But Marvel, or better yet, Disney World.
Well, yes, but that's modern stuff,
Disney's
right?
going to show up and be like, hey.
Does that backtrack to games that happened... 2 centuries ago?
They bought everything.
All right.
They bought everything that Fox and Marvel owned. And if Marvel and Fox were still paying for copyrights that covered everything way back when, Disney's going to show up, knock, knock, knock. Hey, you got to fuck off or give us money type deal.
Sounds right.
100%.
So if you want this game, get it now or it will be gone.
Yeah.
Get it now.
It's going to be gone pretty soon, probably.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I do actually have the original. They've released the original on PSN like 10 or so years ago, and I bought it. So I actually have the actual arcade game on my PS3, which is really cool.
Here's the thing, Russ. You bought the rights to own the code.
Yes, right. I don't want to talk about that. We're not talking about that. Nope.
If you download the game on your computer, it's yours forever.
Yep. Right. Until my hard drive fries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
that's why you just make 6 copies and store them on 6 different hard drives.
Right. Yes. Like a apocalypse game preserver sociopath. I think I just called out Mike directly. But that is it for us tonight on the free side, guys. Thank you so much for listening or watching or however you joined us tonight. Bela, thanks for joining us. I enjoyed our conversation. I hope you did too.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope everyone else did and that it wasn't too boring.
I don't think it was. I think it was really cool. Really, really enlightening too. Gives a different perspective on what Nintendo's doing. And there's been a lot of hate towards Nintendo for what they're doing. Some of it from us, reasonably. But it definitely paints...
Probably from us.
Well, I mean, the internet's a brutal place, right? But
Yeah.
The reality is that there is always two sides to every story, and there's a reason for every choice made, right? So it gives us a little bit of perspective on that. We are going to head over to the Patreon side and talk about some games that are coming out very soon over there, and some thoughts. I briefly mentioned the game that we'll talk about over there is one that I was very excited for, and now I'm a little bit skeptical whether or not I want to get into because of how much of my life it wants to bogart. So Fela will not be joining us over there, so thank you for joining us, hon. I appreciate you being here. She doesn't have much to add on the gaming side of stuff, so she's just here supporting us, so thank you. And with that, Mike?
Tell your mama said, what's up?
Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next time.